Rosa had always been known for her kindness and her gentle smile. She worked as a maid in a rich neighborhood, cleaning large houses that sparkled like palaces. Every morning she left her small rented room before sunrise, carrying an old handbag and her lunch wrapped in newspaper. Her life was simple, full of quiet struggle, but she never complained. Her only reason to smile was her daughter, Lena, a bright, curious little girl who loved to draw. Lena was only 10 years old, but she was wise beyond her age. Every evening she waited by the window for her mother to come home. As soon as Rosa walked in, tired and dusty, Lena would run into her arms and hand her a small drawing she made that day. Sometimes of flowers, sometimes of stars, sometimes of a little family holding hands. Rosa would laugh softly, kiss her on the forehead and say, "You will become a great artist one day, my love." They didn't have much, but they had each other. Their tiny room had cracked walls and a broken window that whistled when the wind blew. They had an old lamp that flickered at night, and a table that served as both a dining space and Lena's art corner. Still, to Lena, that room was a home filled with love. Everything changed one cold evening when Rosa came home looking pale and weak. She tried to hide it from Lena, but her hands trembled as she cooked dinner. "Mama, are you okay?" Lena asked softly. Rosa smiled, pretending to be fine, but inside she was scared. The next morning she fainted while sweeping the floor at work. Her employer called an ambulance and took her to the hospital. The doctor said Rosa had a serious illness and needed proper treatment, medicine, tests, and rest. When Rosa heard the cost, her heart sank. Her savings were almost gone and she couldn't afford even 1 week of treatment. She begged her employer to let her keep working, but her weak body wouldn't allow it. She was forced to stop. Without work, she couldn't pay rent or buy medicine. Days went by and Rosa became weaker. Lena watched her mother suffer and something inside her broke. She wanted to help, but she was just a child. She tried to sell old toys, but no one wanted them. She asked neighbors for help, but everyone had their own struggles. Then one evening, as she looked at her stack of colorful drawings, an idea came to her. Her drawings, they were the only thing she had. People always smiled when they saw them. Maybe, just maybe, someone would buy one. The next morning, she carefully packed her drawings in a small folder, took a piece of cardboard and wrote in her neat handwriting, "Drawings for Mom's treatment." She went to the nearby park, where people passed by every day. She spread her drawings on the ground and placed the cardboard sign beside them. Her heart raced as strangers walked past, some glancing at her, others ignoring her completely. She smiled shyly at everyone, hoping someone would stop. Hours passed, but not a single person bought a drawing. By afternoon, the sun was hot and her stomach growled with hunger. She had skipped breakfast to save food for her mother. Still, she refused to go home empty-handed. A kind old lady finally stopped and looked at one of the drawings, a picture of a mother and daughter sitting under a tree. The woman asked gently, "Did you draw this yourself?" Lena nodded. "Yes, ma'am. I'm selling them to buy medicine for my mom." The old lady's eyes softened. She handed Lena a few coins and said, "Keep drawing, child. You have a beautiful gift." That was the first time someone appreciated her work. Lena felt hope return. That night, she gave the coins to her mother and told her about the drawing. Rosa's eyes filled with tears, both of pride and sadness. "You shouldn't be doing this, my little one," she whispered. But Lena held her hand tightly and said, "I want to help, Mama. You always said every little effort matters." The next day, Lena went back to the same spot. Even though her clothes were old and her shoes worn out, her heart was full of courage. Every morning, she sat by the roadside arranging her drawings carefully. She started to notice that people were watching her, some curious, some pitying, but no one truly stopped. Still, she never gave up. Every coin she earned, no matter how small, was a victory. She would rush home after sunset and proudly drop the coins into a small jar beside her mother's bed. "See, Mama, I'm saving for your medicine," she would say with a big smile. Rosa would wipe her tears and hug her tightly, praying silently that someone, anyone, would help them before it was too late. As days passed, Lena's drawings became even more emotional. She drew what she felt: loneliness, love, and hope. People began to notice her talent, though few stopped to buy. But one thing was certain: the little girl who once drew for fun was now drawing to survive. And while she didn't know it yet, her quiet struggle on that street corner was about to change her life forever. Somewhere, fate was watching, and soon it would send help in the most unexpected form. The next morning, the city was already awake when Lena stepped out of her small house. The streets were noisy with honking cars, barking dogs, and the chatter of people rushing to work. But Lena's heart was calm and full of purpose. She carried her small folder of drawings tied with a ribbon and a cardboard sign that said, "Drawings for Mom's treatment." Her mother, Rosa, was lying on the bed when she left. Before going out, Lena kissed her forehead and whispered, "Don't worry, Mama, I'll earn something today." The little girl walked for nearly half an hour to reach a busy park near the city's shopping street. She chose a spot near the benches under a big tree that gave her some shade. Carefully, she spread her drawings on the ground, colorful pictures of flowers, houses, sunsets, and smiling faces. Each drawing told a small story. She smoothed the corners so the wind wouldn't blow them away and placed her cardboard sign in front. At first, she was nervous. People walked past her quickly, too busy to notice. She looked at every face, hoping someone would stop. A few children pointed at her drawings and smiled, but their parents pulled them along, saying, "Come on, we're getting late." Time passed slowly. The sun was hot and the ground under her legs burned, but Lena didn't move. She remembered her mother's words, "When life gets hard, you stay strong and kind." So she smiled at everyone who looked her way. After an hour, a man stopped and picked up one of her drawings. It was of a small house surrounded by trees with a little girl standing outside holding a flower. "You drew this?" he asked. "Yes, sir," Lena said politely. "I'm selling them to help my mom. She's sick." The man looked at her for a moment, then put the drawing back and walked away without saying a word. Lena's smile faded, but she didn't cry. She simply picked up the drawing, dusted it off, and put it back. "Maybe next time," she whispered to herself. By afternoon, her stomach began to ache with hunger. She hadn't eaten breakfast because there wasn't enough food at home. But she didn't want to leave yet. She wanted to try until sunset. As the wind blew harder, one of her drawings flew away. She ran after it, laughing as it landed near a flower bed. "Even my drawings want to fly," she joked softly to herself. A little boy sitting on the bench nearby saw her and clapped. "You're funny," he said. His mother smiled and came over. "Did you draw these?" she asked kindly. "Yes," Lena replied shyly. "I sell them to buy medicine for my mom." The woman's eyes softened. She picked one drawing, a picture of the sun shining after rain, and said, "This one's beautiful." She gave Lena a 100-rupee note and told her to keep the change. It was the first time someone had paid her properly for her art. Lena's eyes filled with tears of happiness. She thanked the lady again and again. That small moment filled her heart with hope. When she reached home that evening, she ran to her mother's bed and showed her the money. "Mama, someone bought my drawing today." "Look," Rosa smiled weakly, her eyes shining with tears. "I told you, my love. You have magic in your hands." From that day, Lena went to the park every morning. Some days were good. She sold 1 or 2 drawings. Other days, she came home with nothing. But no matter what, she never lost her smile. People began to recognize her. The little girl with the art stand and the hopeful eyes. One old man who passed by daily started giving her blank papers so she could draw more. A woman who worked at a nearby bakery sometimes brought her leftover bread. These small acts of kindness became Lena's reason to keep going. But not everyone was kind. Some people laughed at her drawings. A group of teenagers once kicked one of her papers and said, "No one's going to buy this stuff." Lena didn't reply. She just quietly picked up her drawing and fixed it. She believed that kindness always wins over cruelty. At night, she would sit beside her mother, showing her the new drawings she made that day. Rosa would smile and tell her stories from when she was young. They would laugh together for a while, forgetting their pain. Then Rosa would cough and Lena's heart would ache all over again. One evening, as the sun began to set, Lena looked at her small collection of drawings. They were simple, but they carried all her feelings: love for her mother, sadness, hope, and courage. She thought to herself, "If I just keep going, maybe something good will happen." That night, while she lay beside her sleeping mother, Lena made a quiet promise. She whispered, "I'll sell every drawing I make. I'll make you better, Mama. You'll see." The next morning, she woke up early, tied her hair into a small ponytail, and carried her folder once again. The city was busy as always, but she felt something different inside her. A new kind of strength. She didn't know that fate was already watching her closely, because somewhere not far away a man who had everything, money, fame, and success, was about to drive down that very street. And his life, just like Lena's, was about to change forever. Days passed and Lena kept returning to her small spot under the big tree near the park. Every morning she carefully spread out her drawings on the ground, bright pictures full of hope and color, and placed her cardboard sign that read, "Drawings for Mom's treatment." The same people walked by every day and most of them didn't even look at her. Some smiled kindly, but many just ignored her as if she didn't exist. At first Lena felt shy, but she slowly grew brave. When people passed, she started saying softly, "Good morning. Would you like a drawing?" Sometimes people would smile and shake their heads. Sometimes they didn't even bother to reply. It hurt her feelings, but she kept smiling anyway. Her clothes were always neat, even though they were old. She washed them herself every night in a small bucket at home. Her shoes had holes and her hair was messy from the wind, but she always tried to look cheerful. Inside, though, she was scared. Her mother was getting weaker every day. Rosa's cough had worsened, and sometimes she was too tired to eat. Lena would come home late in the evening with only a few coins in her hand. "Look, Mama, I sold 2 drawings today," she would say with excitement, even if she had sold none. She didn't want her mother to worry. She would place the coins in a small jar beside the bed, their medicine fund. Rosa always smiled and thanked her, even though she knew it wasn't enough. One afternoon it began to rain. The dark clouds rolled in quickly and the wind blew hard. Lena tried to cover her drawings with a plastic bag, but a few got wet. She held them close to her chest, trying to protect them from the rain. People rushed by, holding umbrellas, stepping around her as if she were invisible. Her clothes were soaked and her hands trembled from the cold. An older man stopped for a moment, looked at her and said, "Go home, child. You'll get sick." But Lena shook her head. "If I go home now, I won't earn anything today," she said softly. The man sighed and left. She stayed under the tree until the rain stopped, wiping each drawing carefully with her sleeve. That night she reached home late. Rosa's condition had worsened. Her lips were pale and she could hardly speak. "Lena," she whispered weakly, "you shouldn't stay out so long. I'll be fine." But Lena sat beside her and held her hand tightly. "Mama, I promised I'll help you. I can't stop now." Her voice was small but full of determination. Rosa looked at her daughter with tears in her eyes. She wished she could tell her to rest, to play like other children, but she knew that wasn't possible anymore. The next morning the sun was bright again. Lena went back to her spot, but she was tired. Her small hands had cuts from carrying the heavy folder, and her legs hurt from sitting on the hard ground. But she ignored the pain. She knew her mother depended on her. That day was worse than usual. People seemed to be in a hurry. Some even laughed when they saw her sign. A woman walked past and said under her breath, "Everyone has a sad story these days." Lena heard it, but she kept quiet. Her throat felt tight, but she refused to cry. She kept arranging her drawings one by one, making sure each one looked perfect. As the day went on, she noticed a few children playing nearby. They came over and looked at her drawings. "Did you draw these yourself?" one of them asked. "Yes," Lena said proudly. "They're beautiful," another said. For a moment she forgot her sadness. She drew a quick picture of a butterfly and gave it to them for free. The kids ran away happily, waving it in the air. Lena smiled. Even if she didn't earn money, she had given someone joy. When evening came, she had sold nothing. The sky turned orange and the park grew quiet. She packed her drawings slowly, her stomach empty and her eyes tired. "Tomorrow will be better," she whispered to herself. On her way home, she stopped by a small flower stall. She looked at the roses and thought about how much her mother loved flowers. "Maybe one day I'll buy her a bunch," she said softly. Then she walked home under the dim streetlights, her little feet aching. When she reached home, Rosa was waiting with a smile, even though she was weak. "Did you sell something today?" she asked gently. "Not today," Lena said, trying to sound brave. "But I met some nice people. They liked my drawings." Rosa nodded, proud of her daughter's spirit. She placed her thin hand on Lena's cheek and said, "You have a strong heart, my love. Never lose it." That night, while Rosa slept, Lena sat by the window looking at the stars. She began sketching again under the soft glow of a candle. Her drawings became more emotional now. A child hugging her mother, a A small home surrounded by light. A girl standing in the rain. She didn't know why, but every drawing made her feel closer to her dream of saving her mother. Days turned into weeks. Some days she earned a few coins, some days nothing at all. But she didn't give up. Her faith was strong. She believed something good would happen. She believed that someone someday would notice her drawings and help her mother. And one afternoon, when the sky was clear and the wind gentle, that miracle finally began. Lena was sitting quietly, drawing a picture of a woman and child walking under the rain. She was lost in her art when a long black luxury car slowed down near her stand. The window rolled down and a man in a dark suit looked at her silently. Lena didn't notice at first. She was too busy drawing. But fate had finally arrived, and that single moment was about to change everything. The afternoon sun was bright, and the air was heavy with the smell of dust and roasted peanuts from a nearby stall. Lena sat under her usual tree, carefully coloring a drawing with her small box of crayons. Her hands were tired, her clothes a little dusty, but her eyes were full of focus and hope. She was drawing a picture of a mother and daughter holding hands under an umbrella. The mother looked just like Rosa, and the little girl had the same ponytail as her. People passed by as usual. Some smiled, some didn't look at all. The city was always in a hurry. Lena didn't mind. She had learned that patience was her best friend. "If I keep trying," she whispered softly, "someone will notice one day." She believed that. She had to believe that. Not far away, a black luxury car was driving down the same street. Inside sat Ethan Cole, a man whose name appeared in newspapers almost every week. He was one of the richest businessmen in the city, known for his expensive lifestyle but also for being distant and serious. People said his heart had turned cold after losing his wife years ago. He was always surrounded by bodyguards, assistants, and cameras, but deep inside he felt terribly alone. That afternoon, Ethan wasn't supposed to be there. He had taken a different route to avoid traffic. As his car slowed down near the park, something unusual caught his eye. A small girl sitting on the ground surrounded by colorful papers. Curious, he told his driver, "Stop the car." The driver hesitated. "Sir, this area isn't safe." "Just stop," Ethan repeated quietly. The car stopped beside the pavement. Through the window, Ethan saw the little girl carefully arranging her drawings, her tiny fingers pressing the corners so they wouldn't fly away. There was a cardboard sign next to her that read, "Drawings for Mom's Treatment." He stared at the sign for a few seconds, then slowly opened the door and stepped out. People nearby looked surprised. A billionaire in a suit getting out of his expensive car in the middle of a busy street wasn't something they saw every day. Lena looked up, startled when she saw a tall man in a gray suit standing in front of her. She quickly stood up and smiled nervously. "Good afternoon, sir. Would you like to buy a drawing?" she asked politely, her voice small but clear. Ethan didn't answer right away. He looked at the drawings spread out before him. They were simple but full of emotion. One showed a child giving her mother flowers. Another showed a bright sunrise over a small house. But the one that caught his attention was the one she had just finished, the mother and daughter under the umbrella. It was full of feeling, full of love. He crouched down to her level and asked, "You drew all of these yourself?" "Yes, sir," Lena said proudly. "I draw them after school. I'm selling them to buy medicine for my mom. She's very sick." Something in her voice and her honest eyes touched something deep inside Ethan, a part of his heart that had been quiet for a long time. He looked at her small hands stained with crayon and then at her hopeful face. "How much for this one?" he asked, pointing at the umbrella drawing. Lena hesitated, unsure of what price to say. 50 rupees, she whispered softly. "It's my favorite one." Ethan smiled slightly. "It's worth much more than that," he said. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his wallet and handed her several large bills, enough to buy a month's worth of medicine. Lena's eyes widened in shock. "Sir, I can't take this much." "It's too much money." He shook his head gently. "You can, and you should. It's not a gift, it's payment. You're an artist and your art deserves to be valued." Tears welled up in Lena's eyes. She pressed the money close to her chest and whispered, "Thank you, sir. You don't know how much this means to me." Ethan nodded, but he didn't leave immediately. He asked, "Where is your mother now?" "At home," Lena said. "She's resting." The doctor said she needs medicine and food, but I'm trying to earn for that. There was silence for a moment. Ethan looked at her. This small girl who had nothing yet carried herself with courage and hope. He thought about his own life, about how empty all his wealth felt. He had lost his wife to illness years ago, and even with all his money he couldn't save her. Maybe that's why Lena's words struck him so deeply. Finally, he reached into his pocket again and handed her a small white card. "Take your mother to this address tomorrow morning," he said softly. "They'll help her." Lena looked at the card and read it aloud. It was the name of one of the most famous hospitals in the city. "But sir," she said quickly, "we can't afford that hospital. It's too expensive." Ethan smiled kindly. "You don't have to worry about that. Just go." Then he picked up all her drawings, every single one, and carefully placed them in a folder his driver brought. "I'll take these," he said. "They're beautiful." Lena stood there speechless, clutching the card. "Thank you. Thank you so much, sir," she said, tears running down her cheeks. Ethan gave her a small nod and walked back to his car. Before getting in, he turned one last time and said quietly, "You remind me of someone very special." Then he drove away. Lena watched the car disappear down the road, her heart beating fast. She looked at the hospital card again, hardly believing what had just happened. "Mama won't believe this," she whispered, smiling through her tears. That night when she told her mother everything, Rosa couldn't stop crying. For the first time in a long while, hope filled their small home. Lena held her mother's hand and said softly, "I told you, Mama, someone would notice one day." Neither of them knew yet that this was only the beginning of a miracle that would soon change both their lives forever. The next morning, Lena woke up earlier than the sun. Her heart was full of excitement and fear. The small white card the man had given her the day before lay safely under her pillow. She pulled it out and looked at it again. The name of the hospital was printed in shining letters, and beneath it was a phone number and the name Ethan Cole. She didn't know who he really was, only that he was kind, and that his eyes had held something warm, something she hadn't seen in anyone for a long time. "Mama," she whispered softly, shaking Rosa's hand. "Wake up, Mama, we have to go. That man told us to visit the hospital today." Rosa opened her eyes slowly. Her body felt weak and she coughed before speaking. "Hospital? Lena, are you sure we can go there? That place is for rich people. We don't belong there." "But he told me to go," Lena said eagerly. "He gave me this card. He said they'll help you." Rosa looked at the card and sighed. "Sometimes people make promises they don't keep, my love. I don't want you to be disappointed." Lena shook her head, her eyes full of determination. "No, Mama, he was different. I believe him." So after eating a small breakfast of tea and bread, Lena helped her mother dress. They took the old bus to the city, holding hands tightly all the way. Rosa looked out the window, her heart pounding with worry. She couldn't understand why a stranger would want to help them. What if it was a mistake? What if they were turned away? When they reached the hospital, Rosa froze in front of the tall glass building. It was huge, shining, and full of people in white coats. She had never been to a place like this before. Lena, though small, stood tall beside her. "Come on, Mama," she said bravely. "We can do this." They walked to the reception desk. A lady in a uniform looked at them and frowned slightly. "Yes, how can I help you?" Lena held out the card. "A man gave us this. He told us to come here for my mother's treatment." The woman took the card, read the name, and her face changed immediately. "Please wait here," she said politely. Within minutes, another staff member appeared and guided them to a private room. Rosa's eyes widened as she saw the clean bed, the fresh sheets, the soft light. "This must be a mistake," she whispered. But then a doctor entered, smiling warmly. "Mrs. Rosa?" he asked. "Mr. Ethan Cole has arranged everything for you. We'll start your treatment today. You don't need to worry about payment. It's all taken care of." Rosa was speechless. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "Who is he?" she asked softly. The doctor smiled. "He's one of the biggest donors of this hospital. He helps people who really need it. You and your daughter are lucky." Lena squeezed her mother's hand, her eyes shining. "See, Mama? I told you he would help." Over the next few days, Rosa began her treatment. Nurses checked her every few hours and doctors spoke kindly to her. Lena stayed by her side, always drawing in her notebook while waiting. Every now and then she'd glance toward the door, hoping the man would return. And one afternoon he did. Ethan Cole walked into the hospital room quietly, carrying a small bag of fruits. Rosa tried to sit up, surprised. "Sir, you came," Lena cried, jumping to her feet. Ethan smiled gently. "Of course I did. How are you feeling, Mrs. Rosa? I don't know how to thank you," Rosa said, her voice trembling. "You saved my life," he shook his head. "No need to thank me. Your daughter did that. Her courage brought you here." Rosa looked at Lena with pride. "She's my little angel. I don't know what I'd do without her." Ethan sat down on the chair beside the bed and looked at Lena. "Do you still draw?" he asked. Lena nodded quickly. "Yes, sir. I draw every day. I even made one for you." She opened her small notebook and showed him a new picture. A man standing beside a hospital bed, giving flowers to a smiling woman. Ethan looked at it for a long moment. Something in the picture touched his heart deeply. It reminded him of his late wife, how helpless he had felt when she was sick, how he wished someone had given him the kind of hope he had just given this child. "You have a gift, Lena," he said softly. "One day your drawings will bring hope to many people," Lena smiled brightly. "I want to help people like you do," Ethan chuckled. "You already are." From that day on, Ethan visited them often. He made sure Rosa received the best care. Sometimes he brought books and art supplies for Lena. He would sit quietly and watch her draw, amazed by the way her small hands created such powerful pictures. The nurses began calling Lena the little artist, and soon even the doctors came to see her work. They all admired her talent and her bravery. One evening, as Ethan was leaving the hospital, his driver asked, "Sir, why are you helping them so much?" Ethan looked out the car window, watching the sunset. "Because that little girl reminded me of something I lost a long time ago," he said quietly. "Hope." Back in the hospital room, Rosa lay resting peacefully while Lena drew another picture. This time it was of a bright sun rising over two people walking together. Underneath, she wrote in her small, neat handwriting, "Kindness is stronger than money." She didn't know yet how much her life was about to change, that her drawings would soon be seen by many people, and that the man who had stopped his car one ordinary day would become someone extraordinary in her story forever. Days passed, and Rosa's health started to improve. The color slowly returned to her face, and her laughter, soft and gentle, began to fill the hospital room again. Lena was happier than she had been in months. She drew every day, filling her sketchbook with stories of hope and kindness. Whenever Ethan visited, she would show him her newest drawing. Ethan always smiled, but inside something was changing. He wasn't just helping out of kindness anymore. He was deeply moved by the little girl's pure heart. She reminded him of his own childhood, the years before wealth and success had made his life cold and distant. Every time he saw Lena smile, something warm flickered in his heart again. One afternoon, when Rosa was finally strong enough to walk, Ethan arrived with a bright grin on his face. "I have good news," he said. "You're well enough to go home soon." Rosa looked down. "I don't know how to thank you, sir. You did more for us than anyone ever has." Ethan shook his head gently. "You don't need to thank me. Your daughter taught me something important. That kindness still exists even in the smallest places." Lena jumped with excitement. "Mama, did you hear? We can go home." But as she looked around the beautiful hospital room, a small sadness touched her heart. She had grown used to this place, the kindness of the doctors, the warm meals, and most of all, Ethan's visits. She didn't want it all to end. Seeing her quiet face, Ethan knelt beside her. "What's wrong, Lena?" She hesitated. "I'll miss this place. And I'll miss you, sir." Ethan smiled warmly. "You don't have to miss me. I have something to ask you, Lena." Her eyes widened. "Ask me?" He nodded. "You see, I have a big company. We make art supplies and help young artists. I want you to be part of something special. There's an art school connected to one of our foundations, and I think you should study there." Lena blinked in surprise. "Me? But I can't go to a big school. I don't have money." Ethan chuckled. "You don't need money. You only need talent and heart, and you already have both." Rosa was speechless. "Sir, that's too much. We can't accept such a big offer." Ethan turned to her. "Mrs. Rosa, please don't say no yet. This isn't charity. It's an opportunity your daughter deserves. She's special." I can see it. Tears filled Rosa's eyes. She looked at Lena, whose small face glowed with hope. If this is really possible, Rosa whispered, then maybe she can have the life I never could. Lena hugged her mother tightly. Mama, I can draw every day. Ethan smiled softly. Yes, Lena, you can draw, learn, and grow. We'll take care of everything. A few days later, Rosa was discharged from the hospital. Before leaving, the nurses and doctors came to say goodbye. They had all fallen in love with Lena's gentle spirit and big dreams. When they reached the front gate, Ethan's black car was waiting for them. Lena looked at it with awe. It was the same car that had stopped on that rainy day when everything changed. She turned to Ethan and said shyly, Sir, when you stopped your car that day, I thought it was just luck. But now I think maybe it was meant to happen. Ethan looked at her and smiled. I think you're right, Lena. Sometimes life brings people together for a reason. The car ride to the city was long but peaceful. Lena looked out the window, watching the tall buildings and busy roads. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity. Rosa sat quietly beside her, still not believing that this was real. When they reached the art school, Lena's heart raced. It was beautiful. Walls covered in paintings, children laughing as they held brushes and sketchbooks. She had never seen a place like it. Ethan bent down beside her. This is where you'll study. You'll have teachers who will help you learn everything about art. And whenever you want to visit your mother, you can. I've already arranged a small home for both of you nearby. Lena couldn't hold back her tears. Thank you, sir. I promise I'll make you proud. Ethan smiled warmly. You already have, Lena. That evening, after Ethan left, Lena and Rosa sat in their new home, a small but cozy apartment near the school. There were 2 beds, a table, and a window that showed the glowing city lights. Rosa touched the soft blanket and whispered, Can you believe this, Lena? We have a home again. Lena hugged her mother. It's because of you, Mama. You always believed in me. But deep inside, Rosa knew it was more than that. It was the kindness of a stranger who saw beauty where others saw nothing. It was fate, kindness, and a little girl's pure dream that had opened a door to a new world. The next morning, Lena attended her first art class. She was nervous, but when she picked up her pencil, everything else faded away. The teacher watched her quietly and then whispered to another student, That girl, she has something special. As Lena drew, she thought about her mother's smile and Ethan's kind eyes. Her dream was no longer small. She wasn't just a maid's daughter anymore, she was an artist in the making, a girl who turned her pain into beauty. Meanwhile, Ethan sat in his office looking at one of Lena's drawings pinned to his wall. It was the picture she had given him in the hospital, the man with flowers standing beside a smiling woman. He smiled to himself. She'll change the world one day, he said quietly. And though he didn't know it yet, that day would come sooner than anyone expected. The next few weeks felt like a dream for Lena. Every morning, she woke up early, helped her mother with breakfast, and then hurried to her new art school. She wore her simple uniform proudly and carried the set of drawing pencils that Ethan had gifted her. For the first time in her life, she felt like she truly belonged somewhere. The school was big, full of color and life. Children laughed in the hallways. Brushes danced across canvases and music floated in the air. Everywhere she looked, there was art. Paintings on the walls, clay sculptures on tables, and bright sketches pinned to boards. It was a place filled with creativity and hope. But even in such a happy place, Lena sometimes felt small. Many of her classmates came from rich families. They had expensive art supplies and beautiful clothes. Some of them didn't understand her quiet nature. A few even whispered things like, she's here because of charity, or that's the girl the billionaire helped. Lena heard them, but she never replied. Instead, she focused on her art. She spent hours drawing and painting, pouring her heart into every line. Her teachers quickly noticed her talent. One day, her art teacher, Miss Clara, looked at her sketch and said softly, Lena, you have something rare. Your art tells stories. Lena smiled shyly. Thank you, ma'am. I just draw what I feel. Miss Clara nodded. And that's what makes you special. As the days passed, Lena began to grow more confident. She made a few kind friends who admired her work and didn't care about where she came from. They often sat with her during lunch, laughing and talking about art. Still, Lena never forgot why she was there. For her mother, for their future, and for the kindness Ethan had shown them. One afternoon, while working on her project, Lena overheard a group of students talking. Did you hear? One girl said. There's going to be a big art competition next month. The winner's painting will be displayed at the city's art exhibition, another boy added. And the winner will get a scholarship from Mr. Ethan's foundation. Lena's heart started to race. A scholarship? That would mean she could continue her studies without worrying about money. She ran home that evening and told her mother everything. "Mama, there's a competition. If I win, it'll help us even more." Rosa smiled proudly. "You'll do great, my love. Just draw from your heart like you always do." So Lena began to prepare. Every evening after dinner, she sat near the window and sketched. She wanted her drawing to be meaningful, something that showed her journey, her love for her mother, and her gratitude for the kindness that had changed her life. After many nights of thinking, she finally decided what to draw. She would paint a little girl selling drawings on the street under a cloudy sky, while a car stopped beside her. It was her story. The moment everything changed. For days she worked tirelessly. Sometimes she cried while painting, remembering how hard those days had been, how scared she was for her mother. But she also smiled, thinking of the man who had stopped his car, and how that single act of kindness had brought light back into their lives. When she finished the painting, even her teacher was speechless. "Lena," Miss Clara whispered, "this isn't just art, it's emotion. It's truth." The day of the competition arrived. The hall was filled with paintings from many talented students. Judges walked around studying each piece carefully. Ethan was one of the guests of honor, but Lena didn't know he was coming. When Ethan entered the hall, everyone greeted him respectfully. He moved slowly from one painting to another, admiring the creativity of the young artists. But when he stopped in front of Lena's painting, he froze. There it was, his car, the rain, the little girl sitting on the street with her drawings. Every detail was perfect, every emotion captured. He looked at it closely, realizing it was their story. His eyes softened, and for a moment he couldn't speak. Miss Clara approached him quietly. "That's Lena's painting, sir. She's the little girl from the picture." Ethan looked around and saw Lena standing nervously in the corner, her hands clasped together. He walked over to her and smiled warmly. "You painted this?" Lena nodded shyly. "Yes, sir, it's about the day you stopped your car." Ethan's voice was soft. "It's beautiful, Lena. You've captured something very special." The judges soon announced the results, and Lena's name was called as the winner. The audience applauded loudly, and tears filled her eyes. She looked toward Ethan, who clapped proudly. Rosa was in the crowd too, watching with tears streaming down her face. She had never been so proud of her daughter. When Lena went up to receive her award, the announcer said, "This young artist's work touched every heart in the room. Her painting reminds us that even the smallest act of kindness can change a life." After the ceremony, Ethan spoke to her and her mother. "You didn't just win this competition, Lena," he said. "You reminded me what true art is, something that comes from the heart." Lena smiled brightly. "I only painted what I felt, sir. You believed in me when no one else did." Ethan placed his hand gently on her shoulder. "And I always will." That night, when Lena and her mother returned home, the sky was full of stars. They stood by the window looking out at the city lights. Rosa hugged her daughter tightly. "You did it, my brave girl." Lena smiled through her tears. "No, Mama, we did it." As she drifted to sleep that night, her heart was full of peace. She had started on the street with nothing but paper and hope, and now her art had not only saved her mother but touched countless hearts. But Lena's journey wasn't over yet. The competition had opened new doors, and bigger challenges and miracles were waiting just around the corner. The days after the competition felt magical for Lena. Her painting was displayed in the city's main art gallery, where hundreds of people came to see it. It hung on a large white wall under a bright light, and beneath it was a small sign that read, "By Lena Rosa, a story of hope." Every time she visited the gallery, her heart filled with pride and disbelief. She couldn't believe that the same drawings she once sold on the street were now being admired by so many people. Her mother, Rosa, visited the gallery too. She stood in front of the painting with tears in her eyes, whispering, "That's my little girl." She thought about the days when Lena sat under the tree with her worn-out paper and broken pencils. The memory was painful, but now it was a symbol of strength and courage. Ethan watched from a distance as people gathered around the painting. Journalists and reporters asked him about the little girl whose art had moved the entire city. He smiled proudly and said, "She's not just a talented artist, she's a reminder that kindness can change lives." Soon, newspapers began publishing stories about Lena. Headlines read things like, "From street corners to art galleries, the inspiring journey of a Maid's daughter and a billionaire's chance encounter changes a girl's life forever." People from different cities sent letters to her school, praising her bravery and talent. But for Lena, the best part wasn't the attention. It was the feeling that her mother could finally rest without worry. Rosa was healthier now, helping around their little home, cooking warm meals and laughing more than ever. One evening, while they were having dinner, there was a knock on the door. When Lena opened it, she found Ethan standing there, holding a small envelope and a soft smile. "I hope I'm not interrupting," he said kindly. "Mr. Ethan, please come in," Lena said excitedly. He stepped inside and Rosa quickly offered him tea. "You've done so much for us already, sir," she said gratefully. Ethan shook his head. "You two have done more for me than you realize." He handed the envelope to Lena. "This is for you." Lena opened it slowly. Inside was a letter from the city's most prestigious art institute. It said she had been given a full scholarship to study art professionally. Her tuition, materials, and living costs would all be covered. Lena gasped, her hands trembling. "A scholarship? For me?" Ethan nodded. "Yes, Lena, they saw your work and were moved by your story. They want to help you grow as an artist." Rosa covered her mouth, tears falling freely. "Oh my God. This is everything we ever dreamed of." Lena ran to Ethan and hugged him tightly. "Thank you, sir. I promise I'll work hard and make you proud." He patted her head gently. "You already have, Lena. You just need to keep believing in yourself." That night after Ethan left, Lena sat by the window with her sketchbook open. The moonlight touched the pages as she began to draw again. This time she drew herself standing under a bright sky, holding her mother's hand, and walking toward a shining future. Weeks later, Lena began studying at the Art Institute. The classes were harder now, and the students were even more skilled. But she didn't let that scare her. Every challenge reminded her of where she came from. The streets, the rain, the struggle. Whenever she felt unsure, she would remember her mother's words, "Draw from your heart, my love." As time passed, Lena's talent grew. Her teachers were amazed by how her art carried emotion and soul. Her painting spoke of love, kindness, and hope. Soon she was invited to her first real exhibition, one where artists from all over the country would participate. On the night of the event, the hall was filled with people, photographers, journalists, and art lovers. Lena stood beside her latest painting, a breathtaking image of a woman holding a child surrounded by light. It was inspired by her mother, Rosa. When Ethan arrived, he stopped in front of the painting and smiled. "It's beautiful," he said softly. "It looks just like your mother." Lena blushed. "That's because it is her. She's my biggest inspiration." Ethan turned to Rosa, who was standing nearby, her eyes glistening with pride. "You've raised a remarkable daughter," he said sincerely. Rosa smiled warmly. "No, sir. You helped her see the world beyond pain. For that, I'll always be thankful." The event was a huge success. Lena's painting was sold for a large amount of money, and she insisted that the proceeds go to a charity that helped children in need. "There are so many kids like me," she said. "They just need someone to stop and see them." The story touched hearts across the country. People began donating to the charity, inspired by Lena's journey. Her story became a symbol of hope, proof that dreams can grow even from the hardest places. After the event, Ethan asked Lena and Rosa to join him outside. The night sky was full of stars. He looked at Lena and said, "You've come a long way, Lena, but I think this is just the beginning." Lena smiled, her eyes shining. "It's all because you stopped your car that day, sir." Ethan chuckled softly. "No, Lena, it's because you never gave up." Rosa placed her hand on Lena's shoulder. "He's right. You turned every hardship into something beautiful." Lena looked up at the stars and whispered, "Mama, one day, I'll open my own art school. I'll teach children who can't afford to learn. I'll help them the way you both helped me." Ethan smiled proudly. "And when that day comes, I'll be the first to support it." As they stood there under the glowing sky, it felt like life had come full circle. from a small girl selling drawings on the street to a young artist whose work inspired the world. Lena had found her purpose. She had proven that even the smallest dream, born in the darkest place, could shine brighter than anyone ever imagined, as long as there was hope, love, and a heart willing to keep drawing.